I'm also the director of the Master of Science in Business Analytics program. And over the years, I have seen um, students from all over. We are growing our program. I think we have grown the program by about 100% since it started in 18. 18, that's when it first started. And we had about 30 or 40 students, and now we have about 70 students per cohort.
Awesome.
Yes. And we also have, I think it's a slowly but steadily climbing ratio of women in the program. So the last cohort had about 30 some percent, and this current cohort has 34%. So I'm really encouraged by that, and I think this is a great profession for a great choice, career choice for women and for men as well. So, but women are 50% of the population, so this is kind of underrepresented. That the gender is underrepresented, I think. So anyway, I think let me click on the record button. I don't use oh, it's already started the recording. I don't use Zoom that much. So anyway, welcome everybody. And as I was introducing myself, I put this panel together because I want to encourage more women to consider data science, data analytics, business analytics as a possible career. And going forward, the McKinsey issued a report about 5 years ago saying that globally by 2030, about 350 million people will be displaced because of the adoption of technology. I mean, that's attributable to the adoption of technology. So that's a fairly sad number, but McKinsey report also goes on to say that over 530 million new jobs will be created. And so that is what we want to focus on. For example, the data science as a field didn't even exist about 5 or 7 years ago. Now it's a new field. And most businesses in at least in Kentucky or in the surrounding areas are still scrambling to understand what data science is and how it may impact the business. Companies like Humana, of course, they've been doing this for years, but there are smaller businesses that are, say, a few $100 million in revenue, and they don't truly understand how they can use data science to become competitive or even to survive. So there are lots of opportunities. And my personal experience has been that when I was teaching undergraduate, it has been the same, that women do as well, if not better, than men in this field, in not only data science, but also in computer information systems. I taught that for 15 years. So I have seen people uh, do extremely well in programming, and they are women. And so anyway, I would like to start. And today we're going to spend about 20, 30 minutes where I have some questions for the panel, and then after that we're going to have 10 or 15 minutes of Q&A. So with that, the first question is, of course, an introduction, and I would like each panelist to introduce themselves. And so I'm going to uh, call out your name, and then each will have a minute to 2 minutes to introduce yourself. So I would like you to tell the audience who you are and what your data science role is. All right, so with that, Emily Dutrow, would you go first? Oh, by the way, before we start, I'm sorry. We're literally setting a precedent today because we have four presidents. And please, when you introduce yourself, please mention why we have 4 presidents and tell the audience what president you are of. Thank you. Emily.
Hey everybody, like you said, my name's Emily and I am currently a financial planning and analysis professional at Humana in the care delivery organization. So I do a lot of budgeting and forecasting for the Kansas and Carolina markets. I am the president of the 2020 cohort of the MSBA program. So we started last August. I think that's how the numbering works. I graduated from U of L in 2020 with math and psychology degrees. And so I'm currently working through the MSBA program. Yeah.
Thank you. And next we have Emily Gentry.
Hi, I'm Emily Gentry. I'm a senior business intelligence engineer on the human capital analytics team at Humana. We are a true analytics shop within the people experience organization. So the work that we do around associate engagement, I work with some fantastic IO psychologists to help them be more effective in performing the research. And I currently am the president of the Younger Women's Club of Louisville. We are currently in our centennial year. And I've been the president, I assumed the presidency in May of 2020, which was interesting timing, but I'm really grateful and it's a great group. So lucky to be here.
Could you tell us a little bit more about that club?
Oh yeah, so the Younger Women's Club of Louisville, if you want to think of where we fit, it's a lot of people have heard of Junior League. Junior League recruits heavily out of college, and Younger Women's Club is basically a local, similar to Juniors League club that has been serving the community for 100 years now. We have a lot of great community service partnerships, and we have a long history of service to the community and making funds available to charities centered around especially women and children's needs.
That's great to know. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that with us. So next, we have Brittany Green.
My name is Dr. Brittany Green. I am an assistant professor, just started this year in information systems, analytics, and operations. So my research and passion is about developing and applying new and cutting edge statistics or machine learning algorithms to problems, primarily in healthcare and even nonprofits. I also teach the MSBA Data Analytics 2 course, which I'm also very passionate about. And that pretty much sums me up. Good to see everybody.
Thank you. And as you have noticed, Brittany is my colleague. So thank you. So next we have Kendall Ruber.
So hello, everyone. My name is Kendall Ruber. I graduated from the MSBA program in August of 2020. I was the president of my cohort, so one of the 4 that Dr. Guan was mentioning before. Since graduating, I've actually accepted a new role as a data analyst at Yum Brands. So that's the parent company that owns KFC and Pizza Hut and Taco Bell, which some of you may have heard of some of those brands. And so in addition to that, I also teach Intro to Statistics and Data Analytics for the online MBA program. And so I wanted to thank you all for coming. I see quite a few coworkers and some of my students here. And thank you everybody for coming out to support us today.
Thank you, Kendall. So congratulations on your new role, new job at Yums. So I wanted to take this opportunity to share with the audience that Yum, in the last month, Yum purchased 2 different companies. The first company is an AI company, and the second company is a digital marketing platform. So I see that as businesses realizing that AI capability and digital platform becoming part of their core competency. You just can't do business. You can't compete without a heavy investment in AI and data science and so on and so forth. So thank you, Kendall. And next we have Mia Sims.
Hi everyone, I'm Mia Sims. I am a spring 2021 cohort president, so the last president of this group. I have a bachelor's in math that I received from the University of Louisville, and currently I work in operations management at a small nonprofit here in town. I currently work in tourism, and we use a lot of externally sourced data to make a lot of business decisions, and that's kind of what got me interested in this field and led me to pursuing a degree in data analytics at the University of Louisville.
All right. Thank you, Mia. And I just finished teaching the database class that Mia was in. And I have to tell everybody that I was truly impressed by Mia because she would never stop asking questions. And so you know how when you teach a class, you like students to be asking questions because you want to get feedback. And Mia certainly has impressed me. And so thank you, Mia. And last but not least, we have Pravina Vachula. I don't know if I pronounced your last name correctly. Pravina, would you go next?
Yes. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Pravina Vachula. I'm an alumni of the MSBA program. I'm glad to be a part of this panel today. So I work as a data analyst at El Toro. No, it's not a Mexican restaurant. It's an IP targeting ad tech company that I work at. So I'm a part of the data science team currently. For my daily tasks, I work with Python and Power BI, create some Power BI dashboards for my teams. I work with relational and non-relational database to extract data from my teams, which create models to pitch in our products to our clients. I also work with data extraction from different APIs and putting that into the databases. So yeah, that's about it.
Well, thank you, Pravina. I remember reviewing your profile. This was before you, of course, arrived on campus. I said, wow, this is a good student. And so I was the only one I wasn't the only one that was impressed because apparently El Toro was impressed by your resume. So you may not have shared that with the audience, but Pravina was hired as an intern at El Toro when she started the program. And so while she was studying, she was also working there. And of course, before she graduated, you were hired by El Toro, correct? As a full-time employee.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, thank you. So, so I think the audience probably are also very impressed, just like I was or am, by the panel. And so the next question I have is to ask the panelists, what is their path to or pathway to data science? So again, 1 to 2 minutes, and tell the audience, share with the audience why you chose data science and what were some of the obstacles that you overcome in order to get to where you are today, including, I don't mind if you're sharing some of your unhappy experiences in my class as well. So we're going to start with Emily Dutrow. So Emily.
Yeah, so like I said, my undergrad was in math and psychology, and so I was at U of L when this program started. So I was hearing about it as it was actually being developed and became a thing. And I was really interested in it because I felt like it was a good mesh of the 2 undergrads that I chose. And I also took a couple coding classes in my undergrad. And I know some of you know what I mean when when you run a program and it actually works for the first time. The excitement was just something I had never felt before. So that really drove me to join the program. And I didn't really have a whole lot of obstacles. I finished my undergrad in 3 years. And so the scholarship that I had actually helped for this, since it was such an accelerated program. My first 2 semesters were pretty much covered, which was really exciting. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Okay, all right. I'm glad you mentioned your background in psychology, Emily. And a lot of people don't realize actually psychology is becoming a really important branch of science that affects data science in many different ways. And I don't know if you recall a Nobel economics laureate by the name of Daniel Kahneman. He's an Israeli scientist, but he is the father of behavioral economics, and he's written a book called Thinking Fast and Slow. And I think every data scientist, anyone working with data, probably I would recommend that book. And so that's demonstration of the diffusion of different disciplines that is taking place in data science field. So Emily, thank you. So next up, we have Emily Gentry.
Hi, so I graduated from Bellarmine with a degree in economics in 2014. So I entered college in 2010. I initially thought I wanted to be an engineer, but when 10% of all engineers are women, it's just a weird, like I kept interviewing places and thinking about it, and it's just like, I don't think this is what I want to do. So I went to business school and found economics and kind of entered the field just in time to learn just how bad the fallout of the Great Recession was. So I didn't start in data science. I was mostly, working with like invoicing and like spreadsheets. It's just finance. And my first data science role, true data science role, was at Genscape. So I was over and managed the crude oil pipeline flow model product. So that is forecasting the crude oil supply coming into and going out of the NYMEX delivery point. That is an indicator of supply and demand. It was a really awesome experience to release data and watch the market move in real time. Just very cool. So I really learned a lot there. That's also where I learned, how to think of data as a product, because our clients did pay a lot of money for the data that we provided. So I had that experience. That was great. I wanted to do a little bit of business analyst work, and I liked the people side of data. So I went to Thornton's, and I was a business analyst that worked with the category management side of their business. And then I did a little work with their loyalty analytics program and learned more about people data there. This role at Humana came open in 2017, and I applied and got it. And I've been in this role for 4 years in the human capital analytics team. I've gotten to do some really incredible work, and I just feel really fortunate to be here. Yeah, when I graduated from college, data science as a field didn't exist. So I just kind of found my way.
Great. I like your comment there saying that people were willing to pay for your analysis, your data, and
Yeah.
that's why it's happening everywhere. And so, would you say that in the past few years you see more and more women getting into data science, at least at Humana?
Yeah, and I think Humana has great representation for women across the board. I think that's one of our strengths. Could do better for sure, but especially within the HR organization, I feel like I work with a lot of high achieving women, and that's been really great to just see, have modeled, and work with.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Emily. Next up, we have Brittany Green, Dr. Green.
I love what you're just saying, Emily, about the having mentors and people to model that for you. I think that's super important. So I just wanted to highlight that. And I think my path was a bit more winding than yours, but I also had to find my way. But I guess my career has always been driven by the question, how can I use math for good, for social good? So when I started out in undergrad, I figured a good place to start would be to get a bachelor's in math. Seemed pretty logical, so I went through that, and I also have a minor in computer science. But when I finished that, I didn't actually know how to apply it to anything. So then I got a master's in engineering, and that really helped with the applied aspect. And I learned a ton, but by the end, I still kind of struggled with the social good aspect. So actually, I completely jumped ship and I went into AmeriCorps, which is essentially the domestic version of the Peace Corps for a year. And I enjoyed that, but I know I am not a social worker. So I made my way kind of back and I went into healthcare, kind of analytics. I was a healthcare analyst. And that's where I found out about data science and how it could be used in healthcare and for good. And I wanted to learn everything about the area. So then from there, long story short, I got my PhD in analytics from the University of Cincinnati in business analytics. And this has allowed me to do research using my technical skills in problems for social good, such as healthcare nonprofits. And I get to teach, which I also love a lot. So that's my whole story. But I would say one of the main challenges was that the path isn't always linear, and to keep going through that, because sometimes I was struggling like, well, I should have done this, or maybe I should have done something that wasn't quite right for me, but I decided to switch. And in the end, it all worked out. But during that was somewhat challenging to try to continue, but it's just life. So.
Okay, well, thank you, Dr. Green. And you certainly have a storied past, and for everybody else, I'm certainly very impressed by Dr. Green's credentials and his work, and he's doing very, very meaningful work. And I think one of the things he recently did was to create a special type of decision tree using certain statistical properties. And so that using that kind of new modified decision tree, she was able to address issues in time series based data that previous models couldn't address. So this is really what research means. I mean, you're doing something, you're making an improvement that has up to this point not been addressed. So that is certainly very significant. And next up, we have Kendall Ruber.
Yeah, so I would say, like Dr. Green, I feel like I kind of had a non-traditional path into the data field. I originally got interested in analytics from an HR internship that I did. So when a lot of people think of HR, they kind of think of traditional HR roles like interviewing and going to career fairs. That was absolutely not what I did. I was more in the HR analytics space of trying to discover like why are employees leaving, or how are we going about our compensation philosophy? Are we competitive with other local employers? And from that, I kind of coined it as creeping on people for a living. But like I think that from HR, like you can really go through and prove different sort of aspects of the human experience with data. And so that is what interested me to pursue the field further. After I graduated from undergrad, I didn't mention earlier, but my undergraduate degree is in economics and in Spanish. I was applying for some data analyst roles, but I wasn't having a lot of luck. I noticed kind of over and over again, the skills that I was missing were those more technical programming skills. And so that's where I decided I knew I wanted to go to graduate school, but to go the more technical route and to kind of pick up those skills that I was missing. And so since then, I've held various different analytics roles in the space of not only HR, but cybersecurity analytics, as well as operations, and kind of maintaining that human focus everywhere that I go. And so I really like being in this space and getting to prove things about the way we live using numbers.
Well, that's very well put, Kendall. And Kendall, of course, has come back, and she's been helping with our existing students with statistics. And she's actually teaching a section of online MBA students. You're teaching the introduction to statistics class, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think teaching a subject, yeah, I mean, you truly learn when you teach the subject. Would you agree?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, Kendall. So next we have Mia Sims.
So for me, I would say that I have always been a more naturally curious person. I never wanted to know just the what. I always wanted to know the how, the why, the reasoning behind everything. And like Dr. Jeff said, I continuously ask questions everywhere in all aspects of my life. So at my job, we use a lot of data that's given to us to interpret it, to move forward, to make decisions for every aspect of the business. But I always kind of question, where did the data come from? How are we getting these reports? Where is it all coming from? How are these things generated? And I wanted to know more about it. As a math undergrad student, there were opportunities for coding, and I kind of shied away from them because I was like, I really don't know Python. I don't know R. I took maybe one or two classes that involved those, but as a person looking for jobs in math, every single role that fit what I like to do personally required a lot of those technical skills. So for me, it became a matter of computer science, data analytics, which one? And I wanted something that kind of gave me a little bit more practical application of the coding and programming that I'd be learning. So I did decide to choose this program that focused more into that. So that's kind of how I landed where I am, and I'm still on my journey into a career, but that is how I got into this field of study.
Excellent. So I understand that you started your machine learning class this week, right?
We start next week.
Oh, you start next week. Oh, no, no.
Mhm.
Okay. You're a different cohort. My bad.
Yes.
So you're starting your stats class next week, the first
Yes.
stats class, and we
Yes.
have three of those.
Mhm.
In fact, statistics is the foundation of data science, including the foundation of AI. And so, therefore, nearly one third of our classes are in statistics.
Yeah.
So, thank you, Mia. Again, Pravina, um, you're next.
Yes. So, firstly, I wanted to mention that I'm an international student and I came here because I got married and I moved here with my husband. So, I was looking for a master's program because I wanted to do my master's for a very long time. But I had some criteria set for my master's program that I was looking out for. One, that I get the full reward for the time and the amount of money that I'm spending. Two, I was looking for a program that was more comprehensive, that I didn't want to spend more than a year on that program. And three, I was looking for a program that would offer internships, mainly because I didn't want a gap in my resume. I didn't want a gap in my career. I did want to continuously keep working, be financially independent. So these were the three criteria. And then I came across this MSBA program, and it was exactly what I was looking for. So then I got into this program, and I started off in August, August of 2019. 3 months after I got into the program, I got a couple of internships, which was really shocking because uh, the MSBA school, this business school was working so hard to place the students into internships. So it was like I hadn't put in much effort at all. It was the team that was pushing our profiles to the companies. So I got a couple of opportunities. I came across El Toro. El Toro was a startup. The reason I wanted to work with a startup was the freedom to explore different technologies was more. Uh, because when I also worked with a high profile MNC in India, which had restricted guidelines because the client sets the rules for you. So you're too restricted to explore or research when you're working for a big MNC. So I wanted to work for a startup where it gives me more opportunity and more scope to explore. I landed as an intern, data analyst intern at El Toro. I was working with the ad operations team for 3 months, and then I moved into a data analyst into the data science team. Uh, One important thing that I learned during my internship is it is very important to have domain knowledge because the skill set required for a data analyst can be acquired, but the domain knowledge is the hardest one. So So I was able to get the domain knowledge about the products that they use at El Toro within the 3 months of my internship. Then I moved to a data analyst role. So when I moved to the data analyst role in the data science team, I was using the same tools, Power BI and Python, that I was learning during my MSBA program, which was amazing because it was a hands-on experience for me to do what I was learning in school. So that's when I developed a passion for coding. I really loved Python. I wanted to do more with Python. So I just got into the role, into the data analyst. As Mia said, I think we as women are like curious human beings. We just want to know more. So I think this is like the perfect role for any woman with a curious mind who's bold enough to show what the data says, not what you want to show. So I think that's my journey.
Wow, that's really beautifully put, Pravina. So I think you brought up several different points that I think I need to kind of stress. One is the internship program is why we have students, and because we can attract really talented students. And so it helps the students, it helps our program, but it also helps the local businesses. So they can have people that come in to help them, and they can also learn about these students before they hire them, right? And El Toro apparently likes you a lot, so they hired you. And so another thing that I think Pravina mentioned that is also important is that you have to have domain knowledge. Eventually, you're solving a business problem. So therefore, understanding the domain, being business savvy is important. And I think that brings me to the next um, to a panelist that I wanted to invite, but I couldn't get to. And so I want to talk about her. And most of the panelists here are either economics or math or computer science, and that's their background. But we have about 30% of our students have a business background, 10% have a non-business, non-STEM background. And the example I want to talk about is Julia Goins. Today, it's a birthday. I just sent her a happy birthday message. And so she has an undergraduate degree in journalism, and she worked in marketing for about 10 years. And then she didn't see any future in that role, so she decided to join the MSBA. She was one of the students in the very first cohort, and she struggled, as you might have imagined. But she persevered. Uh, she, because we have a team-based cohort, so therefore she could get a lot of help from her teammates. But I also see her develop really fast. So her background in communication is actually a plus for her team and for herself, because eventually, especially in the second half of the program, you have to present your results. And we know that we Homo sapiens, we're not telepathic. And so therefore, her ability to communicate, her ability to especially communicate verbally, I mean, that is, I think, what got her hired. Because eventually, you're always communicating with stakeholders, with business owners of those problems that you're solving. So okay, so that is great. Thank you, Pravina. So the last question that I'm going to ask, I'm not going to ask each of you to answer those questions. I'm just going to ask um, uh, um, anyone to volunteer to ask those questions. So the last question is, can you tell us about the common misconceptions about the data science as a career for women? Any one of the panelists are welcome to ask that question.
So I just want to keep it short. Oh, sorry.
Yes.
You can go ahead, Karina.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Okay, I just want to keep it short. First thing, there are a lot of people in this panelist who have maths and statistical background, but I didn't come from that background. But you do not need to have a math background to come into a data science field. So that is one misconception that many people have, or in general, people have, is that you need to have a lot of statistics, you need to do a lot of math. That's not the case. So you need to forget about maths and statistics because you will learn that through the program itself.
Thank you. Kendall?
And so what I was going to say kind of stems along with what Pravina said. I think one of the biggest misconceptions that I've fallen guilty of as well is the thinking of I'm not qualified to be in this field. And I mean, like we've addressed already, people that come into data science and analytics can come from any sort of background because that domain knowledge is so important. But I think that in my career, some of the best professional advice that I've gotten has come from Dr. Maisha Great Diggs at Twitter. She was on another webinar that I was on in the past, but is to kind of take the confidence of a man with every move or every opportunity that comes your way in a job. And so what I mean by that is I feel like a lot of times as women, we will attribute our success to, oh, I was in the right place at the right time, or I wouldn't have this role like if so-and-so wouldn't have recommended me, and kind of doubting ourselves, where when a lot of men come into the workforce, they have the idea of, oh, like my skills and abilities got me here. And like, I'm definitely the most qualified. So I think that we kind of need to change our way of thinking as to like being more confident in your own skills and abilities. Those opportunities would not have come to you if you were not qualified for it in the first place. And so, yeah, I think that if you don't hype yourself up, then nobody else will.
Excellent point. Thank you. Others?
Right. Like, I mean, you're in the room for a reason. So you're there because you have points. You put together the slide deck. You did the analysis. Share what you've learned. Share what you know. Like, there's a reason you're at the table. There's a reason you're in the room. And I struggle with that a lot. I mean, data science it's kind of at the intersection of like often like tech, engineering, and finance. None of those fields are like, women aren't particularly well represented in any of those fields. So it's probably just going to feel weird for us for a while.
That's a great point.
Yeah, I would say along with that, that one thing that I've discovered is sometimes being the only woman isn't necessarily a bad thing. I think for me, it gives you a chance to stand out and to be different from everybody else. So take advantage of the different perspective that you bring to the table. And I mean, I've met a ton of men in my career that have helped me along the way. Some of them are on this call today. And so there are definitely people out there that are willing to help you and mentor you and guide you.
Yep, I completely agree. Think of all of us right now. We should all connect, think about we have this community. So when we're trying to present something and it doesn't go as well, remember you can always reach out and discuss with others, or, you know, your challenges as well. And I also want to second or third that point about data science not being about just something that's technical or specific algorithms. I mean, it's very much multifaceted. I would say one of the most important things is whatever analysis you run, like, can you provide actionable insights to your business, right? And when I was in my PhD, I taught a lot of classes where people would just give me a number. And I'm like, great, but what does that provide to the business? So even that type of thing, like, that's not technical necessarily. And learning is continuous in this field for the rest of our lives. If you think you're, you know, on Stack Exchange or Google looking up something, you're not alone. I guarantee you that. So just keep that mindset, like it's just part of things. So.
Wow, that's wonderful. So in the interest of time, we're going to move to Q&A. So so you can either raise your hand and I will call your name, or you can type your question onto the chat box. So next, we open the floor for Q&A. You have to be patient with me. I don't know how to spot a raised hand. Do we have any questions from the audience? You can type your question.
I see Dr. Goldman has his hand raised.
Oh, yes.
Wondering if the
Dr.
participants-
Goldman, would you please?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Jeff. And really, and I've been putting a few comments here in the chat, but this has been really inspiring. It's something that I'm just sitting back and I'm taking notes here on my desk of some ways that really excite me about how we can further incorporate these ideas into the College of Business. Some of you know I help with our online MBA. And I think there's just a lot of fun and exciting possibilities out there that we can move this conversation forward in really meaningful ways. My question is this, and it was prompted by Kendall, but I want to open it up to anybody on the panel. Kendall, you mentioned having a few male colleagues who have helped along the way, and I'm curious, as one myself, how can we help? What are some of the strategies that have been out there in the past? As somebody who wants to help, who wants to get more women into this field, who sees some of the disparities, who knows some of the heartache that have been expressed. How can we help? Any ideas are welcomed at this point from my perspective, at least.
I mean, if others want to answer this is fine. But the first things that are coming to my head is just to be open and available and share kind of the knowledge, not only technical knowledge, like cool things that you've done or maybe that you've worked on, but also just career knowledge and how maybe they've progressed to their career, what's worked for them, and things like that will, I mean, be beneficial for both. They always say in a mentor-mentee relationship, both sides get benefit from it. And I've definitely seen that as far as me being younger and newer to the field. My mentors have helped me out a lot, but I mean, sometimes the tables turned, and as they won't always be in the same career forever. So you might start to help them later on down the line. So it's kind of having that relationship that's have open and honest communication, but both a give and take for both of you.
Yeah, I would agree. Also,
I feel like I've been.
Oop.
Good. Sorry, Dr. Green.
Sorry about that. Just something else real quick. I was going to say, a lot of times I've heard on panels similar to this, like the responsibility is only on the women, and I don't think that's the right way to go about it. So in any circumstances, if men could help with changing the overall culture of things. I mean, I know that's the big broad statement, but just want to kind of like highlight it shouldn't only be about women, fighting, but it should be, we're all in this together. So I really appreciate your question about that, Zach.
I just
Emily?
want sorry.
Good. No, what I appreciate that my leader does, he's a male, is he always connects me back to the strategy, like the business strategy. So whatever analysis you're doing, if you're a male leader and you can help just your associates in general, but especially women, like connect their work to the larger picture and what everyone is driving towards, you're going to get a better output. And yeah, that's kind of been how I found some of my more meaningful work is, okay, well, given that the strategy is this and I have this information, what can I do to help support strategy? So, and I just appreciate those one-on-ones and sort of straight talk about where we're headed.
So I agree
Pravina,
with
go ahead.
Emily. Yeah, I agree with Emily there, and I believe data science roles demand a lot of leadership because you need to be owning whatever you're doing, whatever your projects that you're doing. At the same time, you should be bold enough to be able to convince people of what you're telling through your data. So that's a very demanding leadership role. And I think as the men as co-workers, I think it will be good if we are given more leadership opportunities in the roles that we are currently at. And also for those who are starting their career in the data science role, it will be great with mentors giving them direction of which way you think they're really good at, and which way do you think that they're going to be great, like in the next 5 years, or they're going to do a tremendous job. That will be like a very good starting point for like beginners there.
Thank you. We have a question in the chat box, and I'm going to read it. So it says, I have an 11-year-old daughter. What advice would you give to your 11-year-old self if you could go back Any parenting tips or pitfalls that you would like to share? So think back to when you were 11-year-old. What advice do you think you could give to a girl that age?
One.
Encourage the interest.
Mhm.
Whatever it is. I started coding by embedding GIFs into my MySpace profile and, making sure that My Chemical Romance song played automatically and no one could turn it off. And that required coding. But at that point, I had no idea that I would be able to do this for work. That wasn't my goal, but it was just something I wanted to do and was interested in and could Google and figure it out. So if you can just support those interests that are technical in nature, or if you notice that they're technical in nature, just provide the resources. Like, who knows how it could be useful in the future, and just being encouraged is important.
Yeah, I would build on that and definitely say that to show them that the world is theirs and that they are capable of anything that they want to do. I remember this sort of unrelated example, but when I was about 10, I wanted to start playing basketball, and my grandpa said that I should do cheerleading instead because girls don't play basketball. So, I mean, that is just children's sports and it's different than a career, but people do say similar things like that, like, oh, I want to be a doctor. It's like, you, why? Like, not you. So I think that going through and supporting them, like Emily said, with their interest and just letting them be the person that they want to be going forward and being vocal of that support too. Like I've said, I invited a lot of men that I've worked with or gone to school with to this meeting today. And it's like, okay, you say that you support me, but when there's actually an opportunity, I want to see you there. And so it's like coming out and like showing your support rather than just saying that you support someone as well.
Great point. I remember my younger daughter wanted to play with model cars. So, okay, I said that's fine. I bought a lot of those for her. We have another, yeah. We have another question here in the chat box. And so I'm going to read the question. In your experience, do the specific programs predominantly used in your first data-related position determine your path after that? For example, if your first position is Python heavy, does that hinder the wiggle room you have in later positions, or have you found it easy to gain a variety of experiences? Anyone?
I don't think so. Oh, sorry, Christina. If that were true, I would still be, creating really awful VBA stuff in Excel. So I'm in the middle of a continuing education course where I'm going to hopefully get better with Python. Like, you just learn as you go. And I feel like even in the past 5 years, the predominant technologies have changed so much. I think going back to the curiosity piece that Pravina mentioned earlier, as long as you're curious and you just want to keep learning, there's going to be more stuff to learn and new programs to learn. And I don't think you'll be pigeonholed because a lot of the logic is similar throughout.
Pravina?
So what I understood after working for a year, like in the data analyst role, is it's more of a generalist role. So you can go whichever direction you want to. You can either be a data engineer, you can work more with the databases specifically, you can go towards the data visualization side. But the tools and technologies that we use are almost the same. I can use both Power BI and Python together, or R and Python together, or I can use I can use Tableau and R programming. So it's you can mix up technologies, but it's more dependent on the role which you take up, what it demands for. Yeah. So.
Okay, excellent point. Do we have additional questions? You can raise your hand and ask your question, pose your question. And we would love to see your face too. So I have a question, so I'm going to read it. I know who the person asking the question. So I'm an intern at El Toro, and have seen Pravina being appreciated for her work multiple times. I have also been Dr. Green's student for data analytics too, and learned a lot from her. I'm also the only woman on my team right now, and looking at these women makes me feel very proud. Thank you for hosting this, Dr. Guan. Thank you, Tulsi, for making that comment.
I may have a question, Dr. Guan, if you don't mind.
Please, go ahead.
Yeah, well, first of all, I'm very excited about this session, and I'm very proud of you guys, and try to be proud of myself too, because I'm a newbie in this field too, and I know that there are a lot of things to learn and try to improve myself. But I have a questions for you guys, since you guys are all busy women. How do you balance your work and personal life, since it may require you to work extra time to improve your skills as well as to prove yourself to the team?
Excellent question.
I mean, to be honest, I have a fantastic spouse, and he's also a project manager. So that's very helpful to me. I feel like I live a fairly more organized life, but it's just always a constant communication. And you can do whatever, you have to kind of like realize that you can do whatever you want to do, but you can't do everything at once. And like, where do those trade-offs exist, where you can sort of get some things off of your plate to take on something else that you're passionate about. But if you try to do absolutely everything, you'll just run into burnout, is what I've learned.
Others?
I agree with Emily. Also, I think it's mostly like if you have more joy in the things that you're doing at work, it really takes the burden off. But you also need to compartmentalize, like to have a specific time for your work, to have a specific time for your personal stuff. But also you need to make sure you have to ask for help when needed. It's nothing wrong. You should ask for help when needed, either at work, either at home. So you can't manage everything. You just have two hands. So it's okay to ask for help. I do ask for help when needed from my colleagues or anybody. So yeah.
I think that's what I like about analytics. It's a team sport. Like, I played soccer growing up, and to make the best analytics products, I need IT to do their job. I need my teammates to do that. Like, everyone has to play their part. So it shouldn't just be on you.
Excellent. Do we have other questions? So I just want to mention that Dr. Goldman, who was here asking a question, teaches in the MSBA program. He teaches data visualization, storytelling. And so he's also in charge of the online MBA program. And so that's another colleague of mine. So I'm very, very pleased to see that we have at least two different colleagues attending today's session. Well, we are actually a couple of minutes past the time, and because we were supposed to go to about 12:50. But if we could take one more question, and if not, that's fine too. And I think I'm really, really glad that I have picked you guys, because you are so eloquent, and you have done a great job. And I think the recorded session may be shared with prospective students, especially women students. And I hope to see an increase in the percentage of women students in the next cohort. And I truly think that this field is a fast-growing field, and we're looking for people. Businesses are looking for people, and so I hope that by doing things like this, I can encourage more women to consider this as a career. So, and that will be, like you said, a small step at a time, and but a few small steps can add up to a lot, I hope. All right, so with that, I want to thank every panelist for taking the time to be here today and to share your thoughts. So thank you so very much. All right, and with that, we're going to end the meeting, and thank you all the audience, and thank you for your questions as well. So bye, everybody.
Thank you all.
Bye, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, y'all.
Thanks.
Bye.